Hello and welcome back to RageGamingVideos. My name is HOSLOW and today I want to talk to you about weapons, but specifically underrated weapons. Weapons that I think have great statistics, great raw AR, great movesets, great Ash of War, and despite all of that, they are rarely seen in the meta in PvE or PvP. And I want more people to branch out and try a variety because the weapons that you see commonly aren't the only good ones. So we're going to be talking about 5 today, so let's jump into it. To start us off then, I've got a really good one for you. One that I believe is truly underrated, but very strong despite its lack of popularity. I'm not going to stand here and try and convince you that bleed is good. You know it's good. We all know it's good. We all know it's a bit too strong and it really deserves a bit of a nerf. But until then, here's a weapon that's really slept on. HOSLOW'S Blood Petal Whip. Now, another whip you could run instead of the HOSLOW Petal Whip is the THORNED whip. It is exactly the same thing, even the same blood buildup when it's actually got the correct scaling. It just has slightly better dex scaling than HOSLOW'S whip when fully upgraded, meaning it has slightly higher AR. Honestly, I just prefer the way the HOSLOW whip actually looks. That's why I'm using the ever so slightly worse AR whip. Now, yes, what you're giving up instead of running, say, some straight swords, curved swords, katanas, running them in blood for blood builds, well, of course, you're giving up slightly better scaling, slightly better damage numbers, and very importantly, the ability to use seppuku on those weapons to get blood buildup super quick. But as you can see, it doesn't change the fact that I'm destroying people in PvP. And yes, even those people using the katanas and bleed builds. Why is this happening? Because people just don't respect whips. They have insane movesets. When you're power stancing them, you've got the jumping L1, you've got the rolling L1, the crouch L1, the same thing, but quicker. The sprinting L1 is nuts for catching people out. And again, it's shocking range. So you get these procs, these bursts, it cleans out their health. They just don't expect it. And it's super satisfying to kill a meta build with something that might not be on paper as strong and yet feels incredible. Now, yeah, you can see what I'm doing is running quite an interesting setup here. We've got the white mask, we've got the Lord of Blood's exaltation. These two things are going to increase my attack power when we get a bleed proc, but what I actually have is the blood cane sword, which weighs only 2.5, and it's the lowest weight weapon I could find that I could put seppuku on. If you don't know, what you can do is stab yourself with seppuku before a fight or whatever, and that'll get you that attack power buff of the white mask, of the Lord of Blood's exaltation talisman, before actually getting your first proc, increasing your base AR, increasing your damage before the duels even began. Very interestingly, these unique weapons that you might think were somber weapons are actually regular upgrades. So, as regular weapons, I can change their Ash of War to anything I want, and with that, of course, I can change it to Keen if I want to make it a better scaling dex weapon for B grade, or we go Blood, as I'm doing, to give it arcane scaling to benefit from arcane, putting that blood loss buildup at 112. Any weapon that has a blood loss of 100 or higher is ridiculous for bleed buildup. So a reasonable quality of arcane and dex is really giving me a lot of power, as you can see in PvP. But in PvE, again, this range, this moveset, super satisfying, super fun to play. If you've got like an average enemy who can be interrupted by these light attacks, it's just funny. But that range really comes in clutch against harder enemies, bigger boys, and you can get those blood procs before they can really even react or get near you. Either way, to get the HOSLOW whip, you can get one from the Volcano Manor by following the questline and doing the 3 invasions. It's part of the 3rd invasion in the mountaintops of the giant region. And you can come to Jarburg and do the storyline with the 2nd brother to get his whip at the end of that. To get the Thorned whip, you want to come to the mountaintops of the giants and that bridge that you must cross to progress the area. Just before it, there's a big fire dude, a prelate, and he has the whip, so you kill him and he can drop it. Alright, so for this pick, I've got you one for specifically PvP. These are the VYKE'S Swordspear. As you can see, I've got them in power stance, and that is for the poke and thrust moveset. Primarily, you've got the jump L1, and then of course the running L1. We use both and really charge forward. You've got some serious range on that, right? But in PvP, you've got ridiculous tracking. It really catches people out. They don't expect you to be able to do this sort of not quite 180 turn, but at the end, you really do come around, and that catches people. Be scaling dex and a bit of faith on these things. We've got madness buildup as a passive effect of the weapon, which is very rare in this game, by the way. Even though madness is a new thing, they only put in like 2 madness weapons. When I buff these things up with some good stats, we're getting a 720 AR on both of these weapons. You have both of those hit an enemy at reasonably quick speed. You know, these are reasonably fast weapons with great range. it does a lot of damage. Why do I say specifically PvP though? Well, that's because of the Madness build-up. Unfortunately, Madness only works against Tarnished. It does not work on boss fights. It's an extremely fun mechanic, but it is kind of lame that it only works in PvP or specific enemies in PvE. I think they would be absolutely broken if they had some arcane scaling on them, any at all, so we could increase how much Madness buildup actually happens. So perhaps that's why they're not used as much as you might think. But that Ash of War, the Frenzy Flame Thrust, it's such a zone control ability. You can free aim it to throw it where an enemy's going to run into it. You can throw it down and control an area and move into it like safe space. Every little bit of tick of this is going to build up that madness, and obviously my basic attacks are going to do the same. So if I do get one of those madness stuns, that's free damage, and these two things hitting you, it really hurts. In general, I really enjoy spears, and I think they are pretty underused, underloved in the Souls series. These are your iconic classic moveset for your spear, and it is still very strong and still underrated. To get VYKE'S Swordspear, you're going to need to come to the Church of Inhibition, which is the northeastern point of the lakes. And actually, to get there, you must come all along the main road near the elevator and work your way uphill past the Frenzy Flaming Tower, break line of sight with it where you can, go through the Frenzied Flame Village, and as you climb through there, you're going to be invaded on your way to the church by VYKE. If you defeat him, you get the spear, and that's it. Okay, for my next underrated weapon, it's going to be the Great Stars Great Hammer. Simple, to the point, effective. This thing has just under 700 AR in one hand, right? And then we go two hand, it's got 739. This is an extremely powerful weapon, considering I'm matching it with a shield. A great shield specifically with Barricade Shield, which is going to obviously buff up the power of that shield, making it much more resistant, making an enemy much more likely to bounce off of it. In this game, I have woefully underused the wonderful new addition of the guard counters, and I was thinking about, like, what would be the best weapon to run for a guard counter build. Obviously, I would want to go with something heavy like a strength weapon, and then it dawned on me the Great Stars is basically the best one-handed strength weapon that you can get your hands on. And it also has bleed, and it also has a really interesting passive. But let's just look at the guard counter. So we buff up the weapon, and then we guard counter. Big damage. Let's go for another. Guard counter. Big damage. 1,500 on that one. You get a critical hit, it's big damage, and then obviously you have the opportunity for a visceral attack or critical hit. Follow-up is huge poison stagger damage. Now, as I mentioned, this weapon comes with passive bloodlust buildup, which is wonderful. That's going to proc throughout a fight, but specifically what I really care about passive for this weapon is what makes one of the best boss weapons one of the best. It is its passive lifesteal effect, and this has the exact same thing. Landing attacks will restore HP. You combine that with something like Prelate's Charge, which is this Ash of War with a slam down hit. Then you have a charge where you're doing tick hits, you let go, you do an uppercut. That's a really powerful Ash of War combined with certain weapons like this one. But then here's an example of me using it to actually get lifesteal against a pack of enemies. Is that not ridiculous healing potential? Then if we take a step further and run not one, but two of these, well then we can power stance it, and then you've got the double hammer power stance, which I was talking about recently when I was talking about faith weapons, how underrated the double hammer playstyle is. This is incredible poise break potential. It's simple, it's satisfying, it feels good, makes a nice slam sound, and you can combine it with some interesting Ashes of War like the Horaloo, Earthshaker, which is super satisfying. Matches really well with this weapon. You're just going to be able to crunch people with that. And shields mean, as you can see, shields mean nothing against a duo hammer setup like this. We've got the Roll L1, which is this, I love it. It's this bang, bang. Bang, bang combo. It's so good. I absolutely love this weapon, and I never ever see it for some reason. It's so good with its AR. It scales really well. It's got this incredible passive. It's got bleed on it. So yeah, Great Stars, woefully underrated. God, I love guard counters in this game. It's just so easy. It's just so easy. These enemies can be such a pain to deal with, right? Normally, one block and one guard counter later, it's no problem at all. To get yourself the Great Stars hammer, then, you're going to want to come to the Road of Iniquity, the side path. This is the north side of the Altus Plateau region. All right, under this bridge is the Grace. And then straight ahead of me, facing southwest, is this carriage. Inside of that carriage, in the chest in the back, well, that's the Great Stars. As easy as that. Okay, for this weapon, Man, it's such a unique one, and it pairs really well, particularly well with other weapons. This is the Sword of Milos, which is a very unique weapon. Now, you might look at it and go, oh, it doesn't seem that good. We've got a strength and dex scaling of C grade. We've got some bloodlust buildup, but no arcane to make that better. Its AR, compared to other great swords, is pretty middle of the pack at 660. So why is this weapon underrated other than, yeah, it's got a really cool design? Well, it's the perks, the benefits of using it with other things. So, for example, its Ash of War, the Shriek. There's a huge area of effect. That's going to take effect on many enemies, knock down enemies, as well as give them the debuff. That debuff is going to reduce their damage negation stats, meaning they take more damage. It's also going to give them worse status resistance, so your status, like bleed and otherwise, will build up faster. My normal R2 is this really good, I mean the moveset on this thing's nuts, really good roll catch, uppercut, really cool, but when I actually do that Shriek, it is a war cry. So what happens is, you see that buff there at the top left, that's an attack power buff. So I'm no longer at 660, I'm at 720. That's a lot of AR for having this on. And then I get a new R2, which is this 3-hit combo, which is very good at staggering and dealing damage to enemies. So just that Shriek is a Warcry attack power buff. It is a debuff to enemies, knocking them down. It means you have faster status build-up. Your base damage on that enemy is going to be higher because their resistances are lower. That Ash of War has so much going for it, it's nuts. And that's why we pair it with another weapon. Dual wield, that's where great swords really shine, in power stance. You've got this incredible double hit moveset, which is really quick and nice and heavy. You've got the jumping L1. You've got the crouch or roll L1, which is pretty quick. You've got the running L1, which is going to hit with both weapons quickly. And that does a lot of damage. You look at this in PvP, the damage, the numbers is really high. I'm doing something like 1,200 on jump attacks. That is one-shotting some players in these duels. Obviously paired with a great weapon like the Blasphemous Blade here, well, that's one of the top tier weapons in the game. Then you've got really cool versatile options. You swap to that. Well, then you've got the Ash of War for the slam, for roll catching, and you have the lifesteal effects of that blade as well. Both of these weapons, again, have low requirements and not amazing scaling. So what you can do is you can keep your stats low to reach the bare minimum, get some nice damage thresholds, and then pump your stats into other things like Faith, perhaps, to do some incantations. I've got the base level here, which means I've got the beast incantations, and as you can see, it's pretty good against a low target enemy who's just trying to run and stay alive, and I'm trying to catch him with very low damage that's quick. Got him eventually. Yeah, man, in power stance with these two weapons specifically, wonderful. I love what it brings to the table despite it being a middle of the pack statistically, and that's what I mean about underrated weapons, man. You might look at the statistics and go, that's not going to be great. But the moveset, the Ashes of War, the potential from running it with something else, it can really make it shine, and it's so fun to use. We have a full guide to the Dung Eater and how to get his weapon and his equipment on the channel to check out. But the short version is you need to get a Seedbed Curse, then speak with him in the round table. He will give you a key, then you free him in the sewers of Lindell, and he invades you at the moat outside of Lindell, and by killing him there, you get the sword. Okay, I'm back to talk spear once again, but I swear it's different this time. These are actually Swordspears, the Guardian Swordspears. They're incredibly powerful, and for some reason, very few people use them. A, scaling on dex, which is comparable to your best katanas or scaling dex weapons. Higher AR than those weapons, so 785, and I'm using 2 in power stance here, so that is a lot of damage. And it comes with an incredibly unique moveset. You know the normal moveset of the spear we were looking at earlier, which is great for long range, but mostly thrusting. Well, this is a sword spear, so it's much more horizontal than just poke. There's actually quite a bit of verticality to it as well, and as you can see, that light attack combo is coming out really quickly. I want you to imagine this in PvP. I'm right up against someone, they're rolling around me, and I just continuously do this really ridiculously quick attack that has surprising range. It really does catch people. Then we put them in power stance, and it has one of the best roll catches in the game for PvP, in my opinion. You have the first hit, which is reasonable range, right? That spin. But then the follow-up attack, that comes out slowly. So what happens is they dodge the first hit with the roll and get hit by the second, and this happens very consistently. It's incredibly satisfying. Then you think about the fact that they have this much AR for a dex weapon and both hit the enemy, you know, that's going to kill, that's going to do a lot of damage. Another aspect of this underrated weapon is the fact that it can run the Phantom Slash Ash of War, which is another incredibly criminally underrated Ash of War. What it does is it summons an illusion ahead of you doing an attack, and then you go forward with it. So you do a charge, but first the illusion does a charge. Then you can combo it by doing another attack, right? and then that's going to do the double attack slam. People seem to not expect that second hit, or at least the mobility that you get from it. And think about it, when I'm doing this, I'm doing 2 hits, right? But actually I'm doing 4, of course, which is very threatening because they come out at different times, which is great in both PvP and PvE. So whether you're two-handing these for the quick light attacks or quick fast attacks or the spins, or whether you're power stancing for the very strong double damage combos, and of course the incredible roll attack. And because they're normal weapons, you can put whatever Ash of War you want on them. I've got Bloodhound Step for gap closing, and then of course I swapped to the two-hand to do Phantom Slash. All those really quick light attacks. I really enjoyed this weapon. I think it's criminally underrated, so it has to be in this video. To get yourself one of the Swordspears then, or 2 like me, you need to come to the Dragon Barrow Fork Grace, which is the northeastern point of Caelid. It's sort of this long road that goes below the Erd tree here, and along this road is quite a significant amount of the guardians that these weapons come from. They are literally Erd tree guardians, these poison guys. You kill these, you get the drops, you can get the armor set, you can get some sunflowers, there's a mask, and of course you can get the spears themselves. And those are my 5 underrated weapons for this video. To be honest with you, I already have more in mind that I'd love to talk about, and I can imagine I'm not the only one thinking about this and trying this type of stuff. If there are any underrated weapons that you know about, let me know in the comments. You might give me some ideas. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, then please drop a like so we know to make more. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.